Okay, so we said that statistics was collecting, organizing, analyzing data, and then making predictions. So we're not going to collect data, like I said. In 12.2, we learned how to organize the data. In 12.3, we're going to analyze. So we're going to look at 4 different measures. They're called measures of central tendency. These are another way to say average. The bad thing about the word average is it can mean any of these 4 things. So we're going to look at how different they are and see when one is better than the other one or something like that. So all 4 of these M words mean average. So again, what you're doing when you're finding a measure of central tendency, when you're finding an average, is you're finding one number that you think best describes the data. So keep that in mind when we talk through this. So most of you know how to find the mean, or what most people think of when they say the average. You're going to take the sum of the values divided by the number of values. So again, that's just what, when you hear average, that's what most people think of, is that you find it's the mean. Take and add all the values together and then divide by how many values there are. The median is the middle, just like the median of the road. So this is the middle number when values are in order. So these values have to be put in order, and then you work and find the middle number. The mode is the data value that is most often used, or that is out there the most. There can be more than one. There doesn't have to be a mode. Okay, so it's possible to have no mode. Make sure you write no mode. Don't write 0, because 0 is a possible data value. So you can have more than one, or you can have none, or you can have just one. So lots of different options for the mode. The mid-range is the mean of the highest and lowest value. So you're going to take the lowest value plus the highest value and divide by 2, because you're finding the mean of those two. All right, so we're going to look at example 6 on page 750 about the salaries of 8 different social workers. So we have them here. This is in thousands of dollars. All right, so the first thing you're going to do for these is you're going to want to put them in order. Technically, you don't need to put them in order to find the mean, but it's just a lot easier to already have them in order. Okay, so for the mean, and again, when you do these, you need to make sure you label them. You're going to add them all together. And when you do that, you get 363 divided by, there are 8 of them. So we get 45.375. Okay, or that would make more sense if we said $45,375. So the mean salary of these 8 social workers is $45,375. The median. So again, they're already in order. So what you do is you work your way. So highest, lowest, work your way in, and we have a problem. We would cross all of them off. So what happens if you don't have a middle number is you need to figure out what that middle number would be. Obviously, it's pretty easy to know that 41,000 is right in the middle of 40 and 42. But if it's weird numbers or something that you don't want to think of, you need to find the mean of those 2 numbers. Sorry, if you can hear that, the fire alarms keep going off even though they tell us that we don't need to leave. So they're running the heat in Florida because it's so cold here and they're not used to it. So it's making the fire alarm set off. Pretty awesome. So anyway, 40 plus 42 divided by 2 is going to give you 41. So if you can't find the number easily, you just need to find the mean of those middle 2 numbers to get your median. Okay. Mode, again, is the one that is most often used, and you can see we have 60 that is used twice. Nothing else is used twice, so 60,000 is the mode. And then the last one, mid-range, and you can go ahead and put MR for mid-range, is you're going to take the lowest, which is 25, plus 73, and divide that by 2. So that's 98 divided by 2, which gives you 49,000. So there's your 4 measures of central tendency: mean, median, mode, and mid-range. Now you can see these answers are pretty different from each other. Okay, so here's what you have to think about. If you are a new employee, so let's say you are a social worker and you go, you get a job and you are talking about the salary. Some places you get to kind of argue, I guess, if you want to say, or negotiate your salary. So you could go and say, well, I've done some research. I asked 8 different social workers, and I found that the average of those 8 social workers is $60,000. Obviously, the person you're talking to is going to think you're crazy, but since we don't know which of the 4 words you're talking about, technically 60,000 is an average. It's the mode. All right. Now, what's going to happen is that whoever you're talking to here to try to negotiate your salary is going to come back and say, well, I've also done some research and I found the average to be only 41,000. So they're going to look and find the lowest one. So this is why I've said you can make statistics say what you want them to say. Depending on what you're trying to do, you're going to use one of the 4 different ones. Okay? Now, if I asked you to choose which one you thought would be the best measure of central tendency for this group, I would say I would not take the 60,000. 60,000 is not a good representation of this data. The rest of them I would maybe take. You really would have to argue the 49,000 probably for me because it's all the way up here. But the 375 I would probably take because that takes these higher numbers into account. The 41,000 obviously is right in the middle. So one of these 2 would probably be the best answer. I could take an argument for this one, but I would say there's no way you could say that 60,000 was the best indicator of this data, the best number to represent this data. Okay, so not only being able to calculate them, that's just the very basic part, but being able to argue for one or the other depending on which one you want to use. So make sure you pay attention to that a lot in this section also. There's also some other things in here, so I'm not going to go through them, but I'll answer questions. You'll have things like, you have 5 tests. You know what 4 of your scores are. What does your 5th score need to be in order to get an 80% or whatever? So make sure you look those over, and if you're not sure how to do those, you need to try to figure that out. And if you need to email me or whatever, that is totally fine. But this is basically the notes for section 12.3. So the problems you're going to want to know how to do, and again, you probably really want to look these over because they will be like this on the quiz and test also. So we have page 754, 26. So obviously that's an even one, but it's 26 and 29 are both calculating these 4 things, but 26 asks you some questions about them like we were talking about. So you might want to look through that one. So 26, 29, 31, 33, 35, and 37. So those are the ones that you'll want to know how to do from this section. Again, being able to calculate the 4 things is just the very basic part of it, and then knowing what they mean and things like that. So make sure you take some time to look this over. This section seems really easy, but some people kind of miss some points on the quiz and test because I ask more than just, hey, calculate these 4 things. So make sure you check through those problems to see if you have any questions about them.